Okay, so we're back again with Blackout tattoos. There's so many of these, like, I can't keep up with them anymore. This channel is just basically Blackout tattoo shit now.
Right?
It just seems to be the case. It's so weird because, like, I understand that everything that I'm doing is facilitated by Blackout, but I'm much away from it now. Like, in my mind, the furthest thing from what I'm doing is Blackout.
Yeah, this is like a few years ago now.
It's also really interesting to me because, like people will say all the time, so what, you're just going to black out and do this over and over again? It's like, very clearly not. Like, very, very clearly not. Everything I've been doing is color.
But maybe.
Well, no, so I've said since the beginning of this sleeve, the rose sleeve, I've said very candidly, and people would still, like, if I were to black this out, people would be like, I knew he was going to black. Yeah, I've been saying I might do that.
Yes.
But that's the only thing.
And your wife says that nothing is off the table because I know you, and
yeah,
boredom
but
happens.
Things
and
like
who knows?
this, I'm not blacking out my left arm. Like, you can call it sunk cost, you can call it what you want, but like, this is now 81 sessions.
Yeah.
There's no force in the universe strong enough. And same thing with my torso work. Like, the amount of effort that's taken to get that to the level it's at now, it's out of this world to even entertain it. Even to entertain it as a possible option one day down the road is off the table. Like, people don't understand the amount of, like, you do that once. Like, Rick's guy, Wes, he's doing that Phoenix.
Yep.
He had a whole different respect for me the moment he started that.
Oh.
He was just, his brain was just open to this, like, strange realization all at once that motherfucker has done all of this 30 plus times.
Yeah.
It was one of those, I might not make it
through the
once.
one time.
And by the way, like, I've got it now to a place where I'm like, I'm kind of okay with the idea that maybe I won't ever have to do any of that stuff again.
Yep.
So, and there's some stuff that are, yeah, sure, I can hang out with Rick and do this sleeve for the rest of my life. I could do that every week. But there are some things that I don't really need to do ever again.
Right.
I know them intimately, and I'm not that interested in bettering that relationship.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there are some things that are completely off the table. Now, that doesn't mean that there are chances for tweaks and stuff, but like, in terms of blacking it all over and starting again, some things are completely off the table.
Well,
I don't have the mental stamina to get there.
Should we get into the junk?
Yeah.
Okay. So this one says, Hi Remy, hope you're doing great. I have an issue with my arm. I've been trying to cover up an old Coverup on my arm. Sorry. I had my name on the bottom of my arm first. Did it 20 plus years ago. Last year I went to and they got this in quotations, good tattoo artist. Fucking not. And he tattooed a wide line that is patchy as hell over the name and shaded clouds around my stars. Looks like shit. So, in total anger, I ordered my own sterile equipment machine.
This is just getting better and better.
Masked Pro, ink, and everything else, and watched 100 videos plus before trying myself. Have done small ones on friends and stuff too. No to the question, the upper rose is lined and filled with black. In the leaves and small spaces, it sucks. Places I know. The white is on the negative space and on the crappy wide line over the name. It's both gray and white in a blurry situation. Should I black the first rose out and add white and black lines to it when healed? Test RN2 is the blacked out space under the white and black rose, which I will add white and line with black later when healed. It's my first bigger black patch I have ever done with straight Magnum. Or should I black out the whole underarm and keep the stars with negative space around them? I really dig your arm with the red and black and white roses.
Yeah, I don't have that anymore.
I have only done 4 tattoos under a period of 1 month in total, so I can take the critique.
Yeah.
Best regards from Kenny in Sweden, and thanks for all your tips and tricks.
And there's just a little
And
more, I
then,
think.
so Kenny also says, clouds that the artist did it would look good healed. Looks like shit to me. And that's why I'm learning myself to tattoo. Best regards.
Like, that was a lot, so,
Yeah.
like, us gonna have to have a look at this whole mess here, because, you know, that was pretty unhinged. So,
well, and
what are we looking at
I'm
here?
assuming that since Kenny is from Sweden, English is not his first language.
Wow, that's very possible.
So, high five to anybody who emails us when English is not their first language.
You know what? Most people who email us and it is their first language, they can't speak the language.
No.
And that's a growing problem, by the way. So I'm assuming that he did this himself.
Yeah, I'd
This,
say so.
He did the rose here and this black patch.
Yeah, black saturation isn't awful.
No, it's not. So the idea is that he's going to turn this into a rose with white detailing, white and black detailing.
Yeah.
What I would say is immediately I would black out the whole forearm.
Yeah.
And then don't use this negative edge as your line. I think especially because he's going to have to do more there, and bigger roses are better. The whole thing has gotten off to a bit of a small start, right? Especially considering you have so much space to work with. I don't really think this needed to go this way.
No, I don't think so either.
Like, I think that, like, I know he's wanting to do it himself. His saturation game is decent enough that potentially he could do this without doing it that way. You could have just used, especially because that's just a soft black and gray script, like he could have just done like the outline of the rose and then filled with opaque in places and stuff like that and gone without doing the full blackout. But since we're here, I think you should just black out the whole fucking arm, like the whole forearm.
Yep.
Because, like, I understand he's probably planning on doing another rose over top of the rest of that script. That seems to be what he's probably planning on. But I just think...
Yeah, I mean, like, the way I would go about this if I was trying to black out myself is I would basically give myself cuffs. So, like, I would
bring that up farther
a
too.
nice solid line and then black in between that space, and I would leave that to heal. And then maybe in a week or so, I would go about an inch or two up, and then I would do another cuff, same amount of space, and I would black that in. And then I would, once everything is healed and happy, then you do those in-between spaces that you left. And I would just systematically do my forearm until, you know, I filled in all the stripes and I'm
Well, if you particularly want the blackout look,
yeah.
right? Like, there's the... I mean, I don't really recommend it if you don't have to do it.
Yeah, but I think he's given himself no choice at this point.
Well, I don't know if he's given himself no choice, but he's limited his possibilities for sure. I would have loved to have seen included like a picture of what was originally here.
Yeah.
Right? Like whatever this original tattoo he had was. I don't like the clouds.
He didn't
that I
like
see.
the clouds either.
Obviously, they look more like landscape pieces.
I just don't think that the artist who did this was capable of doing smooth transitions in their black and gray shading.
The stars aren't bad.
No.
Right? It's just like you went to a guy who's probably used to doing things more graphically, and then asked for like this smooth, soft thing, because his like black fill isn't terrible, and
No.
like I gotta be kind because there are experts in this city that do things like this all the time.
Yeah.
Because like most clients, they'll see someone do something fairly good, and then they'll assume that means they can do anything. Right? Like, it's like you go to the black and gray guy for like a custom script. And then it's like, well, I don't know why it's not good. Look what he can do. It's
Right.
like, yeah, because a realism piece is not a fucking bold graphic script, right?
No.
Like, these are different skill sets.
Yeah, you don't ask your trad artist to do realism.
Well, some people do, though.
Yeah.
Right? And then they get upset when it doesn't work.
Or when it doesn't look flawless.
Like, I'm giving this guy a bit of grace because I've seen much worse. I just obviously like the clouds don't look like clouds; they look more like nature landscape type things.
I don't know. This is for me. Clouds like this are upsetting because I've achieved smoother clouds than this.
Yeah, well, you had better shading, like smooth shading, than some artists do in 20 years in your first day, right? Like that's just. Some things are like artistic principles too.
And like for me, and I'm not gonna say my smooth shading is perfect because it is far from.
No, that's not what I'm saying either.
Far from.
And it's not because you're my wife.
No,
I would tell you if it was terrible, and I have.
Really like I nerd out. I really like a very smooth gradient in a tattoo. I think it is absolutely stunning. When I see artists pull it off, I am amazed.
Well, and people love it.
And
that's part of where Terry got us going with the black and gray is the butter smooth shading.
Yeah, well, and then like Casey at our Kelowna shop is another one of those artists that she's doing these like really amazingly smooth, and then like Alex at our shop.
Her stuff's very light, but
it's so soft and wonderful, like just like goals. And I just think that like some artists, they're like, yeah.
Well, some people they don't even want to do it.
Yeah.
Like they'll be tattooing 20 years and their stuff still has this kind of like very waffly kind of thick, like it's almost like there's nothing smooth. It's very like, I don't know, chalky.
Yeah.
Right. It just never really like I've seen it recently. An artist that's been doing this for a very long time.
Well,
it's just
we have
choppy.
A guilty party around the shop as well, but it just
I think
pains most of the time.
Even in very dark work, there's room for soft like gradients and transitions. With all of this said, like if you want to do anything similar to what I had on my first version of the rose sleeve, the white and black version, you can get a similar look to that will be easier to achieve with opaques now than going the full blackout than doing white on black. And I'm not saying that isn't an option, but opaque work, though maybe a little harder on your brain, I think the opaques, and you got a little dose of this, the opaques, they go in easier.
Yeah.
And they can cover just about anything as well. Like they go in like a force of nature.
Yeah.
Like they go in and they take over.
I've been saying for a while, so your tattoo that I did, that was my first little experiment with opaques. And I've been saying for a bit that I want to get an opaque set. And I'll probably do some of it on myself. I have a few pieces that have opaque gray in them and not like the black and gray, like wash.
If you watch a feature from a few years ago on here called Remy Reacts to Andre Makishi.
Yeah.
Like, you will understand by the end of that episode that, like, if you can do opaques, then there's nothing you can't cover.
Oh, I agree.
Like, and it's almost like there is no tattoo
and
there.
I remember
if you want the black and gray look, better than white and black on black is opaque work.
Yeah, like a few months ago, Alex at our shop did her first opaque piece, and it was like just this like light switch had turned on for her.
Now she prefers some black and gray.
She's like, oh, and she's like a really good color artist.
Yeah. It just deletes the old tattoo.
Yeah.
It just is. Like, if you know what you're doing with those, like this whole thing that we're looking at could be covered by 4 or 5 opaques, and you could look like you have a black and gray tattoo all of a sudden, and there's like no blackout necessary.
Yeah.
If that's the look you're wanting, right? Like, unless it's incredibly insane, almost any time you could do this with an opaque artist, like someone who does that all the time. Now, that being said, it's a high skill. Like, Rick has done a few of these opaque work cover-ups, and they take quite a while.
Oh yeah, it's like
not to trivialize
for
the
me,
matter.
I think like if you're doing an opaque portrait, it's probably fairly close. I still think a full color portrait is maybe a little more difficult, but I think it's pretty close.
Well, like, we have a guy that was coming to the shop here. He found us through my YouTube, and he wanted to do this whole Alien versus Predator thing, and he wanted to do like black out his arm, and then, but like Rick, being the cover-up artist that he is like, we don't need to do the blackout to do this, right? Like, too often people think that that's necessary. Now, in my case, because I was fully saturated everywhere, that really was basically the only option.
And also,
There was no room to build off in any direction.
Also,
Plus, I liked the black too.
It was a thing. As soon as you put, because it started with wanting to black out a background because you didn't like the fire, and then you were like, oh, I really like this look, and then it just took over.
I mean, that's its own thing. Like, if you like blackout, fine, but like, I try and specify on here as much as I can that it's not always the best option.
Not always.
Right?
No, I
like,
agree with
it's
that.
not always, and in this case, I don't think that there's anything in here that couldn't have been covered without, like, through another means. But like, if you really want that look, go for it. And he's doing a decent job of the black himself. Like, this is way better than what most people are capable of. This is better than what most people are capable of on other people.
Well, yeah, and you're teaching yourself, and you're doing it on yourself. I think this is really decent black saturation. Like, it's not,
Certainly not the worst I've seen.
No.
And you can see where he's done a little bit of white in that rose there.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, if you want brightness, then again, like, you can get white and opaque fairly bright, but it will never have the same clarity as negative space. So if you want my opinion about whether you should pack solid opaque or white, I prefer the look of opaque and white ink to negative space. In truth, I do, but it's not as bright.
Yeah.
It's not as crisp as negative space. Nothing will ever be as crisp against black as negative space. So it's just about what you want, right? This opaques and white have more of a metallic kind of steely look to them just by design. It doesn't mean they can't be as, like, theoretically bright. They just won't be as clear as negative space. Once you put something in the skin, it's never going to be as clear as negative space again. It just won't. And that's coming from someone who's taken every effort to make things as bright as possible over black.
Right.
So